Hi everyone, my name is Jessica. In this video, I will be teaching you all how I create my signature soft glam makeup look. This look is very versatile and can be worn by anyone. Not only that, but it looks amazing on every person I've ever done it on. So in this video, I basically simplify how I create this look so that you can do this on yourself or on others. So stay tuned. Starting with the clean canvas ensures smooth application, so you want to make sure that you're cleaning your client's face first. By doing this, you will always have a flawless outcome. Working over a canvas that is not clean may result in an uneven makeup look. Sometimes it can be patchy. Sometimes the makeup will move around because you have oil or debris on the face. And so it just doesn't have any consistency when you're working on an unclean canvas. So make sure you clean the face first. I normally like to prep with moisturizer first to provide the skin with a layer of protection. Moisturizers often help soften the outer layer of the skin, and just like it says, it restores any moisture that is lost in the skin. And one helpful tip for anyone who is not aware, you should always try to use a moisturizer that has UVA or UVB protection in it, because we always need protection from the sun. Even if you don't see the sun out, it's there, and we need that protection so that we're not damaging our skin. So if you're ever able to, always try to get a moisturizer that contains UVA and UVB protection in it, so that while your skin is also being moisturized and it's quenching its thirst, it's also being protected by the sun. We want to make sure that we're not aging ourselves by putting on makeup. Let's protect our skin first. Next, we're going to jump into priming. I think primer is an excellent tool because it prepares the skin to grip your makeup, and it increases the staying power of your makeup. You can try mattifying primers. You can also try hydrating primers. This all depends on what your actual skin type is. Keep in mind though, we are using things that are intended for the face. So we're not using calamine lotion, we are not using milk of magnesia. Those things over time change the pH of your skin, changes the composition of your skin, because they're not intended for topical use. So let's try to use things that are intended for the face only. The next step in the makeup process is color correcting. Now, as you see, she just has a few blemishes on her face, nothing serious, but we're going to use a orange tone color corrector to help with that. The orange tone is great because what it's going to do is help neutralize any dark spots, any discoloration, or any hyperpigmentation she has here. And we're just applying it in those spots. We're not going to do it everywhere, just only in the places where it is needed. And this kind of provides a protective layer prior to the foundation so that it doesn't show through the foundation. And then one helpful tip is allow it to dry down a little bit and then pat it into the skin. When you allow it to dry down, it kind of builds it up a little bit, and it doesn't blend into the foundation as much as if you were to start immediately putting the foundation on while the color corrector is still very wet. If you do it while the color corrector is still very wet, it ends up changing the undertone within your foundation, and you don't want that to happen. So let it dry down a little bit, pat it in, and it will act as a layer prior to the foundation, and it won't change the tone of your actual foundation color. Alright, y'all, so now we are going to jump into foundation. I want to keep this very simplified for y'all, but I want y'all to really leave with some information here. So a lot of times when we pick our foundation, we just try to pick the color that we feel like best fits us, but a lot of times we're off, right? But that's because we're not actually looking for where our skin tones are and what our undertones are. So if you're ever unsure what an actual undertone is or what a skin tone is, let me just kind of break it down and make it very simple. Your skin tone is the surface of your skin, and that's determined by how much melanin or how little melanin you have. Now, of course, our melanin changes because we're outside, the seasons change, so your skin tone is one that can change. However, your undertones, they don't normally change, and your undertone is just a subtle hue that is actually underneath the surface of the skin. So when we're looking for foundations, oftentimes you'll see what? Light, fair, medium, or dark. That's pretty much easy for us to figure out, right? But we oftentimes, again, do not pay attention to the undertone, and that's why our makeup colors, as far as foundations, are sometimes off. When you are looking for your undertones, you're going to want to look for warm, cool, or neutral. So, warm is going to speak to a golden and a yellow tone. Cool is going to speak to pink, rosy, even blue tones, and then neutral is going to have a little bit of both in them. So, one place on my face that I like to use to determine what exactly my undertone is my jaw area. The reason why I pick my jaw area is because that is the place on my face that is least affected by sunlight. It doesn't change, it's normally very consistent. So, in your jaw area, you're normally able to see what your true undertone is. Sometimes you can also see it in your cheek area, right underneath your eyes, right next to your nose. You'll get a little rosiness there. You'll be very golden in that area, but it's not always consistent because that place gets hit by the sun, by the light often. So in that area, your melanin tends to change. So if you ever are looking for your undertone, try the jaw area, and normally you'll be able to get the perfect foundation that matches your skin tone and it matches your undertone. This is how you find the perfect foundation that just melts into your skin. It actually looks so identical that it looks like you have no foundation on at all. So if you ever are in the market for a new foundation, try that out and see how that helps. And even try speaking to someone at the makeup counter wherever you are, because they should be able to also help you find your skin tone and your undertone to perfectly match your skin. Okay, so we're going to jump into the brows. And though brows can be intimidating, I don't want you all to fear doing them. So we're just going to break it down, and I'm going to basically tell you the best way I know how. So brows have three zones, and they are the inner corner, the highest point of the brow, otherwise known as the arch, and the end of the brow. And by knowing these three zones, it helps you to stay within those parameters. I try to use light strokes when creating my brow with a light hand so that any mistakes I made, I'm able to fix later on. I start at the bottom to etch out the brow I want, and I keep it very light handed at the top as I curve out my arch to keep it soft. Any imperfections, I use my mascara wand to buff and blur out any harsh lines I created. And basically, at the end of the day, light strokes are going to ultimately help you etch out the brow you want, and it helps you do it at your own pace so that you start to learn your brow and become confident with the brows that you want to create, whether it's on someone else or on yourself. And doing light strokes, like I said before, if you do ever mess up at any point, you can always buff it out and you can correct it later on with concealer. But by going in with a heavy hand, sometimes you cannot go back from that. And depending on where you started with your makeup look, you may have to start it all over. So always try to be light-handed, and always try to start with light strokes as you are building your brow. That is going to ensure that you come up with the brow formation that you ultimately want for your makeup look. Me personally, I love to use an angled brush, and I love to use brow pomade because brow pomade moves around nicely. as you see, I can buff it out with my mascara wand and I'm not having any issues at all. So if you like brow pomade, definitely invest in that because as you see, it's very forgiving to use. Now let's conceal the brows. Concealer is not only meant to cover blemishes, but it can bring light to and sharpen any area you would like it to. For the brows, I like to use a lighter shade in the brow bone for a pop that you will see once you've completed your eyeshadow. Toward the inner corner of the eye, I like to use a shade close to my client's complexion for a smooth transition into the brow bone. Now, my biggest suggestion to you is to take your time with this part. The reason being is because concealer at this point is meant to clean up any imperfections. So, as you see on my model's right eye, there is an imperfection right when you hit the brow bone at the bottom. So, we're going to go in and we're going to clean that up with concealer. But you want to make sure that you take your time in doing this because even though we're cleaning up the brows, we're also laying the foundation for our eyeshadow. So everything that we do here, we're doing it with intention because it's setting us up for our next step in the process of creating our makeup look. I also encourage you when you use concealer, and we'll double back on this once we actually go into doing the face, but not necessarily overusing your product. So you want to make sure that you are covering all areas because you want your look to be full coverage. You want it to look consistent and smooth, but you don't have to overdo it and put excessive amounts on. You see that the makeup is only at the tip of my brush that I'm using, and I'm making sure it's hitting every area that I needed to hit. However, you don't see excessive amounts on my brush. And the reason for this is once you put excessive amounts on your client's face, you have to then work extra hard to blend that out. Whereas if you use a little product at a time, you can add on as you go. As I'm putting on concealer on her brows, I'm only putting what is needed and adding if necessary. I'm not putting excessive amounts on, making it a longer process because then I have to blend out all of that makeup if I were putting a lot of product to begin with. I am also using the same color that I used in my inner corner on the top of the brow. And just going back to what I stated before, I try to use a color that is the same complexion as my client or something that is close to it because we want this to look very natural. We don't want it to be like how it used to be where we would use a very bright color similar to what is in my client's brow bone, and then it creates like a halo effect. That is very difficult to blend in, especially if you allow the product to dry. So we try to use a color that is very close to our client's complexion, and then to reinforce that, I always like to go in with whatever brush I use to apply my foundation, and I use that leftover product, and that helps me blend the concealer that we use on the top of the brow seamlessly because we want everything to look fluid, we want everything to look soft, and we want everything to look smooth and consistent. So we use the leftover product from our brush to go ahead and blend in any concealer that is on the top of the brow, and that's done with ease because we are not using shades that are too light. Now the concealer that is left on the lid, we are just taking our time and we are blending that in, and we are setting up the base for our eyeshadow. So you're not just going to leave it on the lid as you see right here. You are going to let it dry down a little bit, which is great because it becomes tacky and it becomes a great base for your eyeshadow. And you can take any brush that you would like to because at this point the concealer is very malleable, and then you can just blend it in, take your time, and there you have it. You have a great base for your eyeshadow if you don't want to use a specific eyeshadow base. Now, I was asked a really great question the other day by my model, and the question was, which do I like to do first, the eyes or the face? And to be honest, I say do whatever works best for you. Now, for me personally, when I first started doing makeup, I did prefer doing the eye first because if at any point I messed up, as I went in and started doing my face application, I found it easy to just clean up anything that I may have done with my eyes, right? But I've noticed that when I do the face first, and this is just my personal preference, I get a more flawless application. It just looks very glam to me. It also gives my face an opportunity to set and bake while I work on my eyeshadow. It has also helped me have more discipline when I am applying my eyeshadow and being more intentional when I am applying my eyeshadow because I don't want whatever I'm doing to the eyes to mess up the rest of my face. It also has saved a lot of time on what my appointments look like as far as when I start and finish. In terms of being intentional when applying concealer, I like to use the term less is more. I like to use a combination of three shades. First, one that is 2 to 3 shades lighter. This one normally is in the T zone and inner cheek area because I want the focus on that part of the face. The second is the transition color, so to speak, which is similar to the foundation color and aids in providing a smooth gradient when blending everything together so that you don't go from light to dark on the face, which can look very harsh. Then, of course, your contour color that helps chisel areas and take away attention in areas that we don't want it brought to. Now, let's talk for a moment about contour because I feel like it isn't talked about enough. Now, if you don't really know what the intent of contour is, it's really to frame the face, to narrow out any areas that you want hidden, and to play up your cheekbones and define your jawline. So, how I like to do this is when I apply contour, I like to focus on placement and shade. For placement, I like to keep contour on the perimeter of the face and bring it in above the jawline. This narrows out and slims the perimeter of the face, making the places you highlighted more prominent. The placement above the jawline is done in a C formation to cup the cheekbone and to lift them. And when we're blending the contour out in that area, do so by blending upward, and that also gives the illusion of a higher cheekbone. Now, because I normally do two applications, one cream and one powder, I make sure not to use a shade that is very dark. I instead just build the contour up by applying more product to deepen the contour if necessary. As you all see, I am applying a contour color that is darker than my client, but it is not much darker than my client. We want the contrast between the highlight and the contour to actually show, but we don't want it to be so different that everything looks blunt, if that makes sense. So as opposed to going in with very deep dark colors initially, we're going in with colors that are slightly darker, and if need be, if we want the contrast to be more visible, we can build up the color and you'll be able to see the contrast way better, but it'll still look very smooth, very blended, very fluid. We're going to move on to blending in the concealer that we placed onto our model's face. This is my favorite part because you really start to see the look come together here. Now, it is up to you if you would like to use a beauty sponge or a beauty blender or a brush. My preference is to use a brush. I just feel like I get a better, more flawless application when I do so. And I do not wipe or swipe my client's face. I pat in the product. I really don't want the product to move because I want it to be full coverage. So, as opposed to using a swiping movement with my brush, I just simply pat the product in, as you can see here. Now, the places that I want the brightest to have the most pop, I leave for last. And the reason being is because I want it to get very tacky and I want it to dry down a little bit. So if you can look at my model's face here, you'll notice that basically in the inner corners of the eye, next to the nose, I haven't touched yet. That's because that's where I want the my client's face to be the brightest, and I'm allowing the product in that area to dry, to get very tacky. And once I get in that area and I do start to blend it in, you'll notice that it doesn't really buff away like the rest of the product because I did not hit that area first. So it's going to stay very bright and very full coverage in that area. This is also a really good explanation as to why I say use less product and add as you go, because I really didn't have to do a lot of blending. I'm making the work very easy on myself because I only put what is needed. Yes, we are doing a full coverage look. However, that doesn't mean that we have to put on and apply a whole bunch of makeup. Only put what is needed. It cuts down on the application time, and as you see, everything blends more seamlessly because there isn't excessive product on the model's face. We really are getting to the meat and potatoes of the look, so to speak. We're kind of like at the halfway point because we are about to finish out the face and move on to the eyes. What I suggest during this part of the process, which is blending out the concealer, is take your time. I cannot stress that enough. You want to take your time during this process because once we go in and set the face with setting powder, what we see here is what it's going to be. So if something is not blended out to the best of your ability, once we place that setting powder down, there's really nothing that you can do. It's set in place, is locked in. And if you try to fix it, you'll find yourself using more product than you need to in order to fix the issue. So to prevent that, take your time. Even if you have to stand back and look at what you're doing, sometimes I even take pictures to see how my model is coming across camera. All of that is fine. Make sure you're taking your time here because anything after this point, it's going to be very hard to change it. This next part of the makeup process is totally optional, but this is a part of what I do for the majority of my clients. Is you see on the model here, I am applying blush. I like applying blush because sometimes when you're doing a full coverage face, your model can look flat. They can kind of look washed out by the concealers and the powders that are being put on the face. So to bring some of the rosiness back into the face, to make it look like the blood is circulating there again, I like to put a little blush on the face. Now, if you have a red undertone already, which sometimes can come from acne or any blemishes, then you probably can skip this process because you probably already have a little bit of rosiness on your face. But like I said, if you or your model tends to look washed out or flat because of all of the neutral tones that are being put on the face from the concealers and the powders, then this is a great opportunity to make it look like the blood is circulating there again. Blush also makes people look very youthful, which I feel like is also a great reason for using blush. I know that there has always been a stigma behind blush because a lot of older women use it, but the reason why they do is because they would like to still look youthful. So try blush out and see if you like it. I think it works well with basically every makeup look. It just all depends on how much you are using. We are now moving on to setting and baking, which is probably a lot of people's favorite part of the process. I don't know what it is. It's just something about setting the face that really gets people amped up. Now, as you all heard me say, I did say baking and setting, and it's because they are two different processes. Setting is a matter of just locking in the concealer because we do not want it to move. And really, you can stop at this part if you would like to. Because baking is a matter of just, once again, highlighting every place that you want to pop. The longer you bake, the more prominent the areas that you want it highlighted will be. Now, right before you place any setting powder on your under eye, make sure you go in with the same brush you use to blend out your concealer and make sure that you reblend in that area. Because some of us tend to wrinkle in that area, and like I said before, whatever you set, it's going to be what it's going to be. So you want to make sure that you reblend out any wrinkles in that area so that once you put the setting powder there, it will go in every crease, in every crevice, and everything will blend smoothly. And I'm just going to put that setting powder in every place that I want highlighted and prep it for baking because that's what I'm going to do for that look. Now that we have set the face with our setting powder, we are going to reinforce what we just did with our baking powder. Our baking powder is not only going to bring light and prominence to the places that we want to really pop, but it's also going to aid in catching any fallout once we do our eyeshadow. So baking powder is really great, especially if you are using any eyeshadows that tend to have a lot of fallout. It will catch it and you will still be able to have a flawless application. And so we're going to go ahead and place that really in all the same places that we put our setting powder, and we're going to leave it and allow it to do its job. Now, I know on social media we see where people put a lot of setting powder, and I mean it's excessive, but you need to make sure that you're understanding your client, yourself, whoever, their skin type, because depending on their skin type, putting too much setting powder, baking powder, or whatever is actually going to be counterintuitive. If your client is oily and you're putting too much setting powder, then it's your skin is going to send sensors to your body to produce more oil, which normally we don't want. So please make sure that when using setting powder, you understand your client's skin type, because sometimes using too much setting powder can actually backfire. Remember when we previously stated that the concealer that we were using on the eyelid could be used as an eyeshadow base? It definitely can be used as an eyeshadow base, but in this video, I wanted to also show you an actual eyeshadow base and how it works so great to help colors pop, even colors that are not bright and very pigmented. So as you see, I placed the eyeshadow base all over my client's eye, and I am literally just patting it in. I'm not rubbing it in or anything like that because I want it to have staying power. I want it to be basically built up so that the colors, no matter how dull, no matter how light, no matter how dark they are, they pop on my client's eye, and I'm blending them right into the concealer that has already been placed on my client's lid. Now, since we are basically done applying our eyeshadow base, we're going to jump right into actually doing our eyeshadow. If at any point you feel like you get lost during this part, maybe follow along as you're doing your own makeup or your models. Start, stop, pause, do whatever you need to do. But I'm going to try to make this as simplified as possible. To start, let's just talk about the shades that we're going to use. We're going to use a combination of 3 different shades. So if you have a palette, do not get overwhelmed. Choose your 3 shades. The shades are transition shades, the inner corner shades, and the outer corner shades. So pick your 3 and then work with those and don't deviate from those, okay? Now, the transition or base shade is normally a color that is similar but not too far from the inner corner and the outer corner. And the transition shade or base shade is literally just what it says. It is the base that you're going to put down so that everything blends smoothly between the inner corner color and the outer corner color. Normally, this color is what I dip back into if I need to blend out anything with the inner corner or the outer corner so everything looks very seamless. I start with it in my client's crease. But if you cannot visibly see a client's crease, the way to find it is to take your eyeshadow brush and just gently poke it into your client's eye. And I know that sounds crazy, but what you'll feel is your client's eyeball. And where the brush comfortably sits on the eyeball, that's where the crease is. And you're going to pat the shadow in that area. Now you're going to start by patting the shadow in that area because you want the actual shadow to stay, and it stays by patting. Once you pat the shadow onto the eye, then you're going to use swiping motions, and this is going to blend it out. So first, start with patting the color on so we can get the pigment where we need it to go. And then we're going to take our brush and swipe it to blend out the pigment. Now, as you can see, or you may have saw me do it on the list, I am bringing the transition or base shade up and over to the inner corner of the eye and up into the brow. To make sure that the look isn't disconnected, you want to always make sure that you are bringing it up into the brow area and you're bringing it into the inner corner of the eye. It's not going to overpower the look. Everything is going to be blended, and you definitely want to make sure that you bring it into the inner corner because that is going to blend into whatever contour you did on the nose, and that's going to set you up for a very nice chiseled small nose. So don't be afraid to bring your transition shade up and over to the front of the eye. We are going to start on the outer corner color. Now, one thing I learned when I was taught how to do makeup, and so I'm going to pay it forward to you all, is don't over blend the colors, okay? We want each color to pop, and we want you to be able to say, okay, I see a color there, I see a color there. We are going to put a darker brown on the outer corner of our model's eye here. But as you see, I am only keeping it where? In the outer corner, and I'm bringing it slightly over to the mid area of the eye, and I am leaving it there. Not only that, I'm not over blending it into my transition shade. The reason why I'm not over blending it into the transition shade is because I don't want to lose the transition shade. So when you are placing your shadows down, make sure that yes, they are blended, but don't spend so much time blending them into the next shade that you end up losing the shade that is underneath. We are now going to apply our inner corner color, and we're actually going to use a combination of two different colors, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. But our first inner corner color is going to be a shade that literally is maybe two shades lighter than our transition color. And we're going to pop that right there on the ball of the eye, and then we're going to move it in towards the inner corner, but not all the way. As you see, I am just patting this shade in. I don't need it to blend anywhere. I'm just simply patting this onto the ball of the eye, and I'm patting it into the outer corner color. It's blending perfectly, so I don't need to do any over blending by swiping, because simply taking my time and patting that color into the outer corner and the transition shade is literally doing enough. Just like when we were applying our concealer, when we do our eyeshadow, take your time, okay? Pack on the product as opposed to putting too much product and then finding yourself in a position where you're not able to blend it out. You only have but so much space in the eyelid area. So, as opposed to putting on excessive amounts of eyeshadow, build it up by packing on the product little by little to see where you want to go with it. You see several times I'm going back and forth. I'm going back to my palette and I'm putting on more product if I feel like I need more product, as opposed to putting excessive amounts on my brush, packing it on the eye at one time, and then I'm being stuck with dag. I have to blend this out, and then all of the colors are going to get lost in each other, and you're not going to be able to see the gradients that we're looking for. Okay, so I left the very inner corner alone because I wanted to put a very cute shimmer in the inner corner. So one thing that I want you all to realize in doing makeup is it's very subjective. You can do whatever it is that you like, whatever it is that the client likes. As long as it's put together well, you can do whatever color you want to. Utilize the colors that are in your palettes. They are there for a reason. In my palette, I had a very cute cream shimmer. And so to make this eyeshadow look pop, I went ahead and put it just right in the inner corner, and I didn't take it any further than the inner corner. When this look is completed, I am telling you, it makes a very big difference to have a cute pop in that inner corner. It brings all of the attention to the center of the face, and it just makes the look very beautiful. We are now moving along to eyeliners. Now, let me just say this. Eyelining used to be the worst part of a makeup application for me, but I had to find certain ways to make it work for me, which I ended up doing. The first thing that made it way easier for me was the product itself. Instead of using liquid liner, I like to use gel liner. And I like to use gel liner because I find I have more control with it. When I used liquid liner, even if I placed it on my client's eyes correctly, it would still travel, which means that I had to go in and correct it. And if I did not intend to make the eyeliner thick, unfortunately, it would end up having to be thick anyway because of all of the imperfections. Okay? Now, I also use a eyeshadow brush that is intended just for lining the eyes. It normally always has a short stem, which allows for more control as opposed to a long stem on it. Now, me personally, I like for my eyeliner to be thinner, but I have seen where people make it thicker. So that is a preference thing. But if you're new to doing eyeliner, I still suggest starting off with a thin line and then building it up as you go, seeing where you want to go with the look. And as you saw with that small tip of that eyeshadow brush, I was able to get into our inner corner with ease because it is short and it allows for more control. That way it's only going where I want it to go and nowhere else. If when you are doing your client's eyeliner, you notice that they may have a little bit more skin than usual on their lid, then you can gently just pull their lid up so that the skin is more taut. By doing this, the skin will kind of smooth out and it will allow for you to make a straighter line. Sometimes when clients have a little bit more skin on their eyelid, it's a little bit wrinkly. And so what happens is as you're putting the eyeliner on, it may skip and it may cause you to kind of mess up. So there's nothing wrong with gently just pulling your client's skin taut so that everything is smooth in that area and you can glide that eyeliner on with no issue at all. Look right there, y'all. As you see, the liner started to skip a little bit, so I gently pulled the skin taut, and then look how easy I was able to just glide the liner over. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a black eyeshadow. Yes, a black eyeshadow. And we're only going to put it in our outer corner. Now, this is good if you do not want to add a wing like I did. As you see, it's very blunt at the end because I didn't add a wing there. So by placing this black eyeshadow right in the outer corner and just blending it out slightly, it kind of like makes that black line disappear and just blends right into the eyeshadow. So like I said, if doing a wing liner is not your specialty, there are still ways of getting around doing that. And so this black eyeshadow just helps blend everything out, and it stops your outer corner from looking so blunt at the end because you did not do a winged eyeliner. We are now moving forward to applying our lash strip. Applying lash strips are not hard as long as you kind of find ways to maneuver around it. So I'm just going to tell you all how I like to apply lash strips. First things first, I like to put mascara first before anything else. I used to do it at the end, but I found that it was actually harder to blend my client's lashes in with the strip by doing it at the end. And sometimes makeup gets on the actual lashes of the client, and the mascara just was not covering it up at the end. I don't know why. So I like to add mascara first to darken the lashes if makeup has gotten on it, and it works just like a charm. The second thing I like to do is not only put lash glue on the lash strip, but I also like to put it on the eyelid of my client. The reason for this is I feel like the adhesion is way better. And normally when I do this, the lashes are able to stay on literally all day long because you have adhesive not only on the strip but also on your eye. As you see, I literally do not have to do much when I am placing the lash strip on. I'm not having to move it around a lot. I literally place it down and we're done. Now, on this first lash, the glue ended up like squirting out of the bottle very quickly and really getting all over the front of the lash, as you can see. But instead of just trying to take off the whole lash extension, I allowed it to sit right where it was, so it's going to look kind of crazy at first. I allowed it to dry down, and then I'm going to place it where it needs to go. But as we move on to the next eye, you can see that the glue dried down. That is perfect because that means that it's nice and tacky. And I literally am going to place the lash strip right on her eye, get it right where I need it to go. And then we literally don't have to do much work because not only is her eyelid tacky, but the strip lash is tacky. And now they are both just adhering perfectly. As you all see, I'm just making sure that in the inner corner, the lashes are sticking where they need to be. In that left eye, you can see that the lash strip was sticking up. That's totally fine because we allowed the glue to dry down and get tacky. And so now I was able to place it right where it needs to be. And any white residue that you see, it's going to dry clear. So normally you don't have to freak out about stuff like that. Always check the type of glue that you purchase because most white glues, they do dry down clear. Now moving on to under eye eyeliner. This can be a tricky one because most clients, not all, but most tend to water up. What I find actually helps is not a eye pencil, but a gel liner. The reason why I have shied away from using eye pencils for this part of makeup application is because the consistency of an actual eye pencil. They are very drying, which means that you have to apply more pressure under the eye, and sometimes you have to do more than one application. So by the time I actually get the color payoff that I would like with the eye pencil, my client has already started tearing up. Whereas with the gel liner, because it is a creamy consistency, I can literally go in, swipe, do a thin line, and the color payoff is great because it is of a cream consistency. So as you see here, she's not watering up, but even if she is starting to water up, I'm literally already done the eye. I don't have to apply it several times. Therefore, I'm not irritating her eyes at all. Now that we have placed the eyeliner under the eye, we are going to go in with a dark brown shadow, and we're just going to blend out the eyeliner so that we can give this a very smoky look. And I swear this completely transitions the whole look. It makes it very soft. And this is actually my favorite part right here. This is when I know that the look is actually coming to a close, is when I do this. But I always place it literally on the eyeliner and directly underneath it and kind of blend it out to smoke out under the eye, and it just looks amazing. Okay, so we really are at the finish line here. What I am now doing is I am taking a pressed powder and I am taking my fluffy foundation brush and I am using that pressed powder and going over any places that we baked. The reason why I like to use a pressed powder to do this is because sometimes after baking, you can leave a white cast on your face. And you don't always see it initially, but sometimes it can come across on camera. So as a act of defense to make sure that we don't have that, I like to go in with a pressed powder because pressed powders are often used as foundation, and I'm just blending out the powder that we use to bake with to make sure that we are not leaving a white cast and we're not leaving any harsh lines. When I do this, I tell you, my client's face looks so creamy, so blended, and so smooth. Now, y'all, outside of the lips, I really could be done with this face. But remember, I said everything that we went in with a cream or a liquid, we're going to make sure that we set with the powder. So we already did that as far as the concealer is concerned. We set with the baking powder. Now we're going to go in and we're going to set our blush because we kind of lost it a little bit with that baking powder. And again, our client started to look a little bit washed out. So we're going to go in with a powder blush and just bring that color right back into our face. And when you're using the blush, do not be scared to go up into the cheek under the eye. It will look perfect because it's going to bring color back into her face. So don't be scared to over apply the blush a little bit. It's not going to mess up the look at all. And then I am now going in and I am setting my contour. Again, like I said, it all just depends on how much you're putting and where you're putting it. So I am taking my contour powder and I'm literally blending it up into my blush. I am going around the perimeter of the face and I'm making sure that I'm hollowing out all places that I want attention taken away from. And even though I am blending it, I'm not blending it so much that you're losing the blush, that you're losing the concealer. Everything is still where it needs to be and you can still see everything. Now we are going in and we are setting the face with our setting spray, and this just locks in everything that we did. Also, it brings a little bit of moisture back to the face, which we can lose with all of the products that we are applying. And I like to just pat it in with a brush just to make sure that it's locked in and nothing is moving, and then we're good to go. The only thing that I am now doing is I am contouring her nose. I didn't do it at first because she doesn't need it, because her nose is already like cute as a button, but just for the sake of the video, I wanted to show you all how easy it is to go in and contour the nose. And it's easy to do because when we did our eyeshadow, we brought it out to the inner corner of our eye, so we set ourselves up for a really good contour. Y'all, we are at the finish line. We are now just doing our client's lips and then we're done. I am actually going to use a cream contour instead of a eye or lip liner. And the reason why I do that is because of the same reason why I use a gel liner under the eyes instead of an eye pencil, because of the consistency of the product. As you see, as I'm lining my client's lips, it's going on perfectly. I am not struggling because of the consistency of it. I'm also able to have more control using a brush than a pencil. When you use a pencil, you have to apply a lot more pressure because pencils are drying, and sometimes that forces you to kind of mess up the outline of what you want the lip to be. Whereas with a cream contour and using a actual lip brush, I'm able to control the shape of the lip, how everything is going on, how deep and dark I want the outline to be. Now, when you are also doing lip liner, depending on what color you want on your lip, you're going to want to bring it in a little bit for a few reasons. The first reason is because you want the liner to act as a base. Throughout the day, your client's going to be talking, your client's going to be eating, drinking, and so you're going to lose some of your lipstick. However, if you have a good base down, then you're not going to lose it completely. So that's actually another reason why I like to use a cream contour instead of a pencil. Another reason why I like to use this is because of the color payoff. And sometimes, depending on what color we put on the lips, like a nude or a nude pink, it's very flat and it can make your client look flat. So by having a good cream contour as the lip liner, you still have some dimension there, you still have some gradients there, and you are not washing out your client. You ever seen somebody's lips and they have like no lip liner and they look crazy? Well, that's because they need that lip liner to kind of bring the whole look together. And that is what we're doing here. And then over top of the liner, we are doing a gloss because glosses are coming back. We used to do matte for a good decade. It's old now. So when you do a lip, make sure that you put a nice little gloss over top of it. It really ties everything together. And it also helps blend the lip liner and the lipstick together, so you have a nice gradient, a nice ombre lip. So there we have it, ladies. We are all done. Thank you for tuning into my video. I hope you all learned something. This video is yours to start, stop, and play. And if you are able to recreate this look, reach out to me and let me know. I would love to see all of your work. But other than that, I will see you guys next time.
Oh my gosh, I've never looked at this before. It looks so good.
You did.
Wow.
Look amazing.
I like it.